Welcome to the Butterfly Mindset Podcast. Welcome to another episode of the Butterfly Mindset Podcast. Today I have Reggie Ford. Thank you for being here today, brother.
Man, thank you for having me. It's an honor. Appreciate you.
Man, so I when I read your bio and I was looking at everything, I was like, this is interesting, right? Like we get like crazy amount of people that like want to be on the podcast, crazy amount of so I'm always reading all these bios. And when I read yours, I was like, this is an interesting one.
Okay.
I love the fact that you are so open with your story and what you've gone through. Mm-hmm. And so to start out, I'd love to just kind of get a deeper dive of like born and raised in Nashville.
Yep.
Like talk to me about how that experience was. Especially because it's such a, like we were talking about before, like it's such a crazy growing city over the years. So
I think, so Nashville has this perception that like it's country music, it's fun, it's the lights, it's Broadway, it's downtown, but there are a lot of folks who grew up similar to the way that I did. And that was, real close to the center of downtown, inner city as they used to call it, raised in poverty, extreme poverty. Around drugs, around violence, around gangs, and that was like a norm. It didn't even seem extraordinary that we were dealing with so much of that type of stuff. And, I didn't realize that was so abnormal until really college and being around people who didn't have the associations with, your childhood friends you didn't have any childhood friends that passed away or got murdered or anything like that. And it's just like, oh, okay, so this is a little different. But, I think family is a big part of my story and growing up here. Most of my family, including extended family, is all here. And so I had a village of folks that raised me. And some of the guidance was positive. Some of it was what they knew. And I won't say negative because it was just what they knew. And but I think part of my upbringing and story and wisdom from an early age was being able to pick from different pieces of people's stories and learn from it, whether it be good or bad. And so, my mom, she was 14 years old when she had me.
Wow.
A baby. And in fact, my grandmother, her mom, was 29 years old when I was born. So I had a 29-year-old grandmother who you would think would still be here, and she's passed away due to life and stress and trauma and, health and all the other things. And so, my dad, he was a little bit older. I think he was about 18 when I was born, was in the streets, living his life, trying to make ends meet, and ended up in prison when I was 8. And that was tough on me. We didn't have a close relationship growing up. My parents were never married or anything like that. Yeah. But I'm the namesake. I look just like them. We have similar mannerisms. It's like I want to emulate you, but you're doing things that the world is telling me not to do. And education was the path that I was being pushed down. Education and sports. Yeah. And so I was a really great student. I had really good support around me. My grandparents on my dad's side were my angels throughout my life, my godsend. And so I got to see that throughout the chaos, throughout all the drama that was going on, there was light in the world. There was beauty. And I think, that relationship, and along with many other relationships in my life, really helped steer me and guide me into the direction that led to being the first person in my family to go to college or graduate from high school from my immediate family, and then go to college and then get a master's degree and then start a business and do all these things and just really start to rewrite the narrative of my family's lineage. So when you were younger, you said something there that you were like, I didn't really realize it till I was in college. Like, so when you were younger and you're seeing all this stuff happen, like, what was the thought process? Like, it was just a norm? Like, this is totally fine? Yeah.
And so how did you know that the difference between doing this or that. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I hear you. I think like with the circumstances of things happening, murder, drug use, domestic violence, sexual abuse, like all of these things happening, it was like it's like if you're in war, like you're expecting somebody to die, you're expecting some negative things to happen, and that's just a part of the circumstance of being in war. Like growing up was like being in war. And so you're going into it knowing that, okay, my grandpa talks about people who he grew up with who died, and then my dad talks about people who he grew up with that died. So like that's just a part of life. Until you get out of it and you don't. But then to the other part of your question of like basically right and wrong, like there are universal truths, I think, to while there are people who are being murdered and who I know people personally who have murdered other people, in my heart of hearts, it's like I couldn't do that to somebody. I couldn't take somebody's life away knowing how precious it is, how hurtful it is when I have somebody who's gone. And I think there are other things like drugs. You get to see the consequences of that, whether you're doing them or selling them. I get to see if I'm selling them, one, I might be harming the community. I am harming the community. There's a chance that I could go to jail. There's a chance that there are people out here who want what I got. There are these consequences that come with that. And I saw some of those consequences. Again, learning from those things. And so I didn't want that. I didn't want, because I'm a kid growing up, and yes, my dad has some money, but I don't never see him, and he's in and out of jail. And so that's not success to me. And on the other side is like, I saw all these people who didn't graduate. I saw these people who didn't have a career and couldn't make ends meet a lot of times. And that wasn't success to me either. And so it's like, where is it? Look around and try to make the next best decision. Like just, it has to be the little thing. Like make your bed up in the morning. Okay, I'm gonna make my bed up, because the alternative is a messy bed, and a messy bed leads to a messy morning. And so like just making that next best decision became my mode of operation. And I think, like I always say, I didn't do anything extraordinary. I don't feel like I did anything extraordinary. Let me clarify. And I feel like it was just these moments where, you get a homework assigned. It's do your homework or not do your homework. Do it. And it's just like little things like that.
So it's interesting too, because I want to go on two different things, but I talk about this a lot, and like with a bunch of different people, but it's an interesting conversation. Is like growing up the way you grew up, it feels like a war zone. Like, and you naturally like again, you're not supposed to have, a quote unquote normal life, right? Quote unquote, right? Because what is normal?
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. But you're not supposed to have, friends getting killed and people on drugs and yada yada. That's not what it's supposed to be like in theory, right? So you're growing up in this war zone, and it's interesting because you mentioned like doing the next thing. And I believe like, in war, right, you have generals and so on and so forth. And like those sometimes are great people and sometimes are not. So like when you're going through this, like, did you have any mentors that were telling you to do the stuff that you shouldn't be doing? And then did you have any mentors that were telling you to do the other stuff? Like, how did you learn that? You get what I'm saying?
It's a good question. And so I think like a lot of times our personalities and the ways that we look at the world, like I was an observer from an early age because observation kept me safe when I was an infant, as a baby. If I acted out, that was going to lead to a very harsh consequence, like a lot of people have to deal with. And so, but that stuck, and it was observe and watch. And, I ended up going to a private school for high school, which was a totally different environment than the one that I grew up in. But being able to adapt to that quickly was one of the reasons I was able to succeed. But when it comes to like the general, I mean, you said general, like the OGs who were there, my grandfather, number one, first and foremost, because he spoke words to me that I don't think anybody else was speaking to me at the time. Like he's like, you're going to go to college. You're going to get married. You're going to buy a house. right? These things that look like a normal American dream type of trajectory. Like he was speaking those things to me from when I was 2, 3 years old on. And so I think just hearing those things, even though I wasn't seeing them, he didn't even do it. He didn't do most of he bought a house. He didn't get married to my grandmother, although they were together for most of my life. He didn't graduate he graduated late from high school and didn't go to college. And so like he was like, these things are going to make your life different. Yeah. And so he was one for sure. And then I think along the way, I picked up a lot of great mentors my mom was there to guide me and teach me lessons of being safe safe in a way of looking at the world as a potential threat though.
Yeah, survived it.
Exactly. From the traumas that she had endured. And so I think but I needed that in the environment that I was in. And so I say mom, grandpa, but then like outside of my family, when it came, I had big cousins that were because I was identified early on as like a person who could do the work, could potentially get out of this situation, I was kept safe from a lot of things. And so when the kids are passing the joint around, don't give it to Reggie. We're gonna keep going. Don't get in the car. We're going somewhere and you're not getting in this car. And
how did that feel when that was happening though, right? Like because when you're a kid, and
you want to fit in.
You want to be with, I always think about like I bought a Vespa at one point, right? And I always I'd ride the Vespa and then there'd be motorcycles. I'd be like, I just want to be with the motorcycle. Now I got a motorcycle, you know what I mean?
Right.
But it's like this, it's like the little kid that's on his tricycle.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you're like, I just want to hang out with the big kids on the bike.
True.
The point is like, how did you feel when that was happening?
I think at the time, it was almost like, damn, am I a sucker? Am I a sucker for that? Because what was glorified wasn't the stuff that I was doing. Going to school and getting straight A's and being, the nerd or the straight lace poster child wasn't being glorified. But what was the dude who could pull up in that nice car. Or who got all the cool shoes and all that. So and it came behind all of those things. And so it was like, I felt like a sucker at times, but I think in my head, I'm like, it's just like this long haul. It was bigger than right now. It was beyond today. And so I kept it out there.
How did you have that long-term vision? Like was it your grandma or your grandpa or your mom telling you how did you figure okay, look, this is a long-term vision?
Man, that's a great question. I think part of it was some of the stuff my grandparents were instilling in me. And then I think, so 14, my mom, right? Yeah. And then by the time I have this sense of self and being she's an early person in her life still, right? She's in her early 20s and I'm seeing damn, I don't want to live life like this. And if it only takes 20 years to change this shit, 20 years to go get a degree, 20 years, I can stick it out through that. Yeah. And I'm not trying to, when I speak about my family and my things, it's all out of honor.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they paved the way for me to be able to do the things 100%. That I was able to do. And so, but yeah, it was seeing those things. I'm like, man, I don't want, if I had a big aspiration of being a father. At one point, and I wanted a big family. I wanted 6 kids. I don't know why I wanted all those kids, but I wanted 6 kids, and I didn't want them to feel anything that I felt growing up, from the hunger, sadness, the pain. I didn't want them to feel that, and so I think that was driving me also. Of just, if I become a dad, I don't want to leave them like my dad did. I don't want to not be able to provide for them, and so that looked like taking care of business today. And so that became a part of it. So yeah,
that's amazing. Yeah, no, that makes sense. And it's funny because I'm always going through this self-discovery, this. I'm a big believer in life's an inward journey, not an outward journey, right? And I probably realized that maybe about a year ago. I realized that's probably why I didn't want my kids to go through what I went through growing up.
Yeah.
And so can I give them a better life? And I don't even have kids yet.
Right, me neither. Me either. And I don't want 6 anymore.
but like you're little, you know, and
Right.
that's what you're thinking about already.
Right.
And it's like, and that's what's giving that long-term vision that makes sense, you
Yeah.
know? So now kind of going back to this conversation of like, okay, so now you're in high school, right? And you're kind of more focused. Was there any moments that you went the wrong way?
I would definitely say like I've not been straight laced
Yeah.
in my entire life. There were things that I did that I am not proud of. Like so many things that I've done that I'm not proud of. You know, one thing that I don't think I've ever spoken about this. Like, you know, playing sports. I play football, basketball, track.
Yeah.
I getting early injuries, high ankle sprains. This was like at the beginning when they started prescribing opioids to folks.
Yeah.
And I would get these opioids, and I didn't like how they made me feel. Right? I took the first one. I was like, hell no! Like
Yeah.
I'm out of control. I'm sleepy. I don't want that feeling.
Yeah.
So I started selling them, and the selling of them became like it was my grandmother. She was stealing from me. Right? She was stealing from me at first, and it would piss me off that you would invade my space and take something that was mine without
Yeah.
even talking to me about it. And so we had a conversation. I was like, look, don't go through my stuff. Don't steal my stuff, but I will sell them to you. Like, it's fucked up, right? I'll sell them to you.
Yeah.
And, man, rest her soul. Like, so like that became a part of it. And then, you know, and I hate this too, because I understand like the shit that younger kids go through, but like 7th grader come up to me and is like, hey, I need this. And I'm like, bro, and I'm crazy, man, because you understand like where people's lives end up. And I'm just like, man, I contributed to some of that. But like, it was like, man, I'm a broke teenager at this school around all these rich people. I get in these pills that I do not fucking want, but they're valuable. Some people place value on those. And so let me get this money. And, yeah, man. So like that's something I don't think I've ever spoken about.
Yeah.
But it definitely like when I look at the opioid crisis and how it's impacted so many people. I mean, I could have been one of those people that it impacted, but it just I stayed away from that. But instead I disseminated things that were given to me. And so yeah, that's definitely one.
You said something very interesting. Is you said, you know, you were around all these rich kids, and it's an interesting thing. So I'm like a big believer in like ego is a devil. And like this thought process is like, it really is your ego that leads you to doing these things, right? Like every freaking day. That's what we make it like these, a lot of our biggest mistakes in life
are
fed by ego.
Facts.
Period.
Facts.
Like, and so it's like you felt, I want to be like these kids, so on and so forth. I don't want these pills. I can make money from them, and this will make me feel great.
It'll make me feel better.
Correct.
Yeah.
And like, as you've gone through this like healing process, through like everything that you've gone through growing up, to, you know, selling those pills, to going to the next thing, like as you're going through this healing process, how long has it taken you to get to where you're at now?
I think every moment of life has been a part of contributing to the healing, even the painful stuff. I think you feel those scars as ways of getting attention of what needs to be addressed. And what I'll say, I didn't truly like get intentional about my healing journey until about 5 years ago. 5 years ago, so my grandmother, the one that was the nurturing grandmother to me, and my grandfather, they were dying. She was dying of terminal brain cancer, and he was dying, and I didn't know it at the time. But they died within 6 months of each other.
Wow.
And in the same time, I lost my parents. Within a year, mom, dad, grandma, and granddad were out of my life.
Wow.
And my parents are still alive, but they're out of my life. And that took a toll on me that I didn't ever anticipate. Like, you make business plans and you make these plans for the next 5 years, next 10 years. What is it going to look like at 60? And then life just throws a curveball at you. And I hadn't anticipated what that would feel like,
Yeah.
what it would be like trying to grieve those losses, to bounce back and look at life in the same light, which I still don't think I do. And so I started writing. And writing was a way of discovering what was going on internally.
Yeah.
My writing became a book, which it doesn't have to be for everybody, but my writing became a book through that chaos, which then turned into how did we get to this place?
Yeah.
And that's where I started to go back and look at all of these different instances and have this realization that all those things that I had normalized weren't quite normal. And then looking at where do we go from here?
Yeah.
Like where's the freedom? Where's the liberation? So I talk about that in my book, Normalization, Realization, Liberation, of like what are the things in our lives that we normalize that may not be healthy, that may be maladaptive, to getting to a place of realizing those. And I think sometimes it takes being outside of that environment to do that, which not everybody has the opportunity to do that. I was fortunate enough. Like I got cherry picked out the hood. I was over here at this private school, so things looked different. Life looked different.
Yeah.
College. Now I'm in a whole different environment, and so I got this opportunity to look at the things that were plaguing my life and put those on there and spin those on the head. And then 5 years ago, just had a mental breakdown. Like I was had started a wealth management business. It was going really well. I had just gotten married. That was going well, but those relationships were gone.
Yeah.
And I felt like an imposter showing up and smiling in a meeting, going and crying in my car.
Yeah.
Let's go to the next one. And just like doing that back and forth, and I wasn't fully me. And like I went 30 days with no sleep. And I wasn't on drugs. I wasn't doing anything like that. It was just 30 days of anxiety, of stress pumping through my body, of grief and depression. And I crashed. That last day was just on the floor, kind of like this floor, just crying and laughing and yelling and screaming and whispering, giggling. And it was like, where am I? Who am I? I don't recognize this person. My wife doesn't recognize this person. And the next day I was like, I gotta do something.
Yeah.
I gotta do something because I'm not of service to the world like I want to be, or to myself if I'm in that position.
Yeah.
And so it took taking care of my mental health and just prioritizing that more than I had prioritized the traditional sense of success more than anything, because again, without that, I wouldn't be here.
How did your wife deal with that as you were going through that?
I think for her, because she had always seen me as so strong and so resilient. Like she knew the backstory and she saw who I was and showed up as in the world. I think it was very difficult for her to see me at a place where even I didn't have the answers to what I was dealing with. And she was there. She was there and she was comforting, and she tried, but then, she has to go to sleep. While she's sleeping, I'm up.
Yeah.
And it would be middle of the night. She'd look up and I remember like, you're when you're halfway asleep, you say things or talk and do. She'd wake up and go, because I'll still be up. And then she'd like go back to sleep. And I'm just like, I'm up. And, but I think, she asked a lot of questions. And really, I don't know if I would have been on the healing journey that I'm on now without her, because early on in our relationship, she asked questions and had patience for the answers that I didn't have at the time. And patience for me to explore that within myself, to then get back to sharing with you, because being vulnerable wasn't a part of my life at one point. That was so frightening, but she made it safe. And so that was a way that I was able to start to express and share some things. And so in that moment, I'm sharing these things, but I'm sharing them from a place of numbness. I can get up and I can be applauded, and I can, even writing the book, and a couple of years after, I still felt numb. And it was, it's just a matter of like the patience and the consistency in showing up. That I think she provided that was crucial for me during that period of time.
How do you think we like? How do you heal the society, right? Like, how do you heal the major amount of people that are going through the same problems that you grew up early?
Yeah, man. It's interesting you say that. So I have a podcast called Vulnerability Muscle.
Yeah.
Redefining vulnerability as a strength to help us heal, to help us connect,
Yeah.
to help us grow. And just a couple days ago, we had a in-person event, and it was in front of a live audience, and it was a lot of folks who had gone through life like I had. And I had a group of panelists who were sharing their stories, and I mean, from the get-go, they were being vulnerable and expressing themselves. I mean, like suicide came out in the first 2 minutes of suicidality came out in the first 2 minutes of the conversation, and it just was rolling from there. And I think part of healing society and healing all those things is we have to destigmatize it, and that in a way of doing that is being vulnerable and then creating the safe space for people to be vulnerable where it's not used against them, where they don't feel the shame of whatever it is that they didn't want to tell you. And so we grow up and our families say we don't tell those stories out of the house. We don't say that outside the house. We keep that here. That's family stuff. And that contributes to shame, because if I got an A on the test, you wouldn't dare say don't go tell people out there. But if I got beaten, or if somebody touched somebody, or like don't tell nobody that. And it's like, so now I'm going to keep that and internalize that and carry shame around that. But the reality is these hard things that happen in life, they're not isolated to just my story. They are part of the human experience, unfortunately. But when we go through life and think that this is only me carrying this shame, feeling the way that I do, now we don't want to talk about it. And now we internalize that, and it keeps this negative cycle going. And instead, like, I can get up here and I can tell you, man, I sold pills to my grandma. That fucking ate me up. Especially when she died. Because I'm like, what if one of those pills was the contributor to like this moment instead of like 5 years from now, right? And but I know that I'm human. And in that human experience, like going back to, like, I'm surrounded by these people. I'm trying to make sense of something. There's ego, there's pride, there's shame. All of this is intertwined. And I'm human with a human experience, and that isn't perfect. It will never be perfect, but my imperfections are my beauty. That's the unique that we need to express. And that was part of that is what I think would be helpful for society, if we got to a place where when someone shared something, it wasn't demonized, it wasn't canceled, it wasn't any of that. We just recognized the human behind it.
I love that. I think it's so interesting, like this perspective, because and also it's a healing journey, right? Like I've been through a lot of my life, you've been through a lot in your life, but and we're here where we're at right now, but that doesn't mean that we're completely healed.
Right. No. Yeah.
You said something where it's like the imperfect journey is like what makes you human, right? And that I think it's more of like that realization.
Yes. And acceptance and love of those experiences, right? Because the shame is hating that part of you. It's hating that part of you. But as you heal, and healed, the ED of that never come. That you never get to a destination. Right. You never end up at a destination where, like, oh, all those things that happened to me in the past just don't affect me no more. Like, no, that's not reality. Right. But you're continuously on the healing journey, and you evolve. You evolve, and I think the healing journey is growing deeper love for self. Deeper knowledge and deeper love for self. And as you do that, now you can look back at those things that you carried shame around and say, man, I was being real human right there. I was being real human right there. But I love me. I love those things, because in order to love myself, I can't hate the things that made me. I can't hate the people. I can't hate the experiences that created me. And so I can't sit up here and tell you that, like, I'm practicing self-love, but then, like, man, I carry the shame about this part and that part and that part and that part and that part. Right, to put it on a physical level, like, I can't tell you that I love my body and say, man, I hate this leg though, and I hate this thigh, and I hate this arm, and I hate this. Like, you don't love your body, you hate all these other pieces. And it's the same thing with your mind and with your experiences and with your story. And so, like, I'm growing to love myself more than I love anybody else. And I'll tell my wife that. I'll tell a future kid that I want to love myself more than anybody else, because when I start to do that, then I can spread that love to everybody 100%. Else. And I think we need more of that.
Yeah.
We need more of that in the world. And I think when we have that, we'll see the divide and the chaos that we have amongst groups or between groups start to dissipate.
Yeah, I love that. What are some practices that you use on like a daily basis to like remind yourself of that self-love?
Man, I'm gonna go back several years. I'm gonna pull it out actually. I think it is important. So I was in a continuing education event for like I'm a CPA, certified public accountant, and one of the speakers, Boaz Roshwerger, shout out. He was like, only 2 out of 500 of y'all in this room are gonna do this. And I'm like, hell yeah, I'm a competitor. Let's go. I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna be the first one to do it. And he's like, this is an affirmation card, right? And on the front of it, I think he had a house or a boat or something on the front of his. But he's like, put a picture on there that reminds you of something, and then on the back, I want you to handwrite your affirmations. And so my picture, the rose growing out of a crack in the concrete always signified like my story, right? The adversity, going through that, poor water, poor soil, like all of that. But the rose grows. And I came up out the trenches, and that's my story, right? And so I wanted to have that as the reminder for me.
I love that.
And then on the back, affirmations. I am meant to succeed. I am blessed. Everything I touch prospers and turns to gold. I am attracting joy into my life. I'm confidently expressing myself openly and honestly. Like, these things weren't necessarily true at the time, but I'm reaffirming them every single day, morning and night. And I keep this in my wallet, just like I did. And I would read it before when I woke up and right before I went to bed. And I think that was something that, and the last one on here, the last 2 on here is I'm looking around at all the faces of the people I'm helping. I'm thrilled to know I made a difference in their lives. As a motivational speaker now, like, I think about that, like manifesting that through these daily affirmations. And then the last one, I'm proud to be the CEO of Rose Creek, which is my wealth management company. And again, this was 5 years before I even thought of that idea. And so that was definitely one. And I think that just became so instilled in who I was, that like, that's just the way I think at this point. But then like more like simple things that I think people can do is like get enough sleep and drink water and move your body, right? Like, and be mindful of what goes into your body. Like, everything, right? From the music you listen to, like everything you consume is going to be processed through this body and then put out. And so if you consume something, it's being processed and then it's anger coming out. Or if you consume something, you process it and it's a disease that comes out. Like, it's all a part of your intakes and outputs. And so I think water, exercise, what you eat, and then get your sleep. Like, we don't do that. And that's like that's the bare minimum of having a baseline of a healthy life. And we neglect that.
And I think there's something that you did too that I think is very special in your story is like leaning into those positive influences in your life.
Yep. I think another really good thing, I'm glad you pointed that out, is I used to see life, and trauma does this to you, where you see life black or white. Black or white. And not just in race, but like the binary of life. And that is just not life. Like, life exists in the gray. 2 truths can exist at the same time. And when you start to realize that, like, man, this shit sucks. Like, the environment that I'm in, this day, it sucks. But at the same time, I got some good people around me. I got some really great people. And that's one thing that I feel my trauma didn't prevent me from experiencing, was the love that people wanted to pour into me. Right. Because I've seen where people wanted to pour love into somebody else, but because of their defenses, they blocked it. And I think I kept my heart stayed open to receive that love. And I think that's a big part of how I was able to do some of the things that I've been able to do is people pouring into me. There's a lot of people.
I love that. I appreciate that, brother.
For sure.
My next question is, I got 3 more questions.
Yeah, for sure.
The first one is where can people find you to
Yeah.
with you?
So website Reggie D Ford, that's D as in dog,
How do you spell it?
ReggieDFord.com, ReggieDFord.com. And then all my socials are at Reggie D Ford. And so that's the best way. Contact me on the website, social media, DM out. It may go to request or something. I'll find it later though, but I definitely find it. And I like to respond to folks. And I'm a human. A human, and that's another thing. Is like, I think when folks have platforms like yours, when folks get on stages and you start to dehumanize them as well, celebrities and things like that. But remember that, like, I'll share a story, and I've healed parts of me to be able to share this story. But at the end of the day, I'm still human. So be mindful of that as you approach, not just me, but anybody.
Yeah, I love that. Now, my next question is there's someone that's living in the hood, that's growing up in a war zone, that is trying to find a way out, but is seeing, the instant gratification that they can get from doing X, Y, Z. What piece of advice would you give them?
I'm gonna tell you that all the examples of that I've seen in my life have not ended well. Straight up. Like, the people that I've seen that have passed away were living that life. The people that I see that are behind bars were living that life. And it, like, fast money don't last. And when it comes to creating a life that you truly want to live, it's not about the intensity of one moment. It's about the habits that you build over a lifetime. And so when you start to build those little habits, it may be corny, it may be not as cool as what you send around you, but what you send around you is bullshit, and you want to get out of that, right? Get out of the bullshit by doing something different. Look at what you're doing and look at what other people are doing. Like, I always want to be different when I'm in a situation that I don't want to be in. I want to be the different person. So be the different person. Not saying you're better, not saying that you're bigger, not saying any of that, but be the different person so that you have a different outcome.
Be okay with being different.
Be okay with that.
I love that. What's next? What's next on your journey?
Man, on my journey, man, like, I think, again, I'm continuing to heal myself, learn myself, know myself better, and heal myself, because that's where it starts. But while I'm doing that, I want to help more people, and doing that through speaking. I think I've had this ability to connect with people on a level that it's just a real deep human level. And whether it's kids, whether it's adults, whether it's students or entrepreneurs or execs, like, I can connect with people. And so I am using my voice, I'm using my platform, I'm consulting in order to do that. And I think, and writing as well, because writing was the way that I connected to myself before I knew that I had that as an outlet. It was just something I did. And I'm in Nashville, we write music. So I've been writing music since I was a kid. So through my writing and through my words, continuing to help people.
Hell yeah. Appreciate you. Thank you so much for being on and sharing your story, man.
Thank you, Cyrus. Thank you.
Appreciate you.